November 17th, 2020. Would everybody please stand and be with me on the pledge of allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And roll call, Deb.
Nelson?
Yes.
Knapp?
Yes.
Donlin?
Yes.
Goodchild?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes. Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Motion made and second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Before I go into the meeting today, I just want to share with everybody, welcome to the chamber here in our meeting today, and for you people that are watching over television. And you'll notice that we've kind of been spread out underneath the new laws that was implemented as of midnight last night. So Jason, do you want to say a few words in regard to why our council is spread out over here?
Well, I don't know if I won't get into a whole lot. I mean, we've spread out. We spread out to maintain 6 foot separation at least. You know, as more people are wearing masks too. We've limited the number of attendees, I guess, in this room to try to adhere to the 15 people indoors. So we'll go with this route, at least for today, since it was a little bit shorter notice. And then I guess protocol will be reevaluated, at least at the state level, within a week. And we may have to make more adjustments as we go forward for at least the next council meeting. But
Okay, thank you. At this time, we're going to open up general discussion. Anybody here on general discussion and revolving, including the comments or good things they got to say about the city of Lamar's or anything? Hearing or seeing none, we'll move right along and go into the thumbs up award. Rex?
Pass.
Ken?
I'll pass also.
Steve?
Nothing today.
Clark?
Pass.
Mike? That didn't take long. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the consent items. All items listed under the consent agenda be enacted by one motion. There be no separate discussion on those items unless a request is made prior to the time the council votes on the motion. Today we've got 6 of them. Approval of the November 3rd, 2020 regular meeting minutes. A list of bills for the period ending 11/13/20. Number 3 is a monthly financial statement for October of 2020. Number 4 is the urban revitalization tax exemption requests. Number 5 is the property casualty insurance. And number 6 is the interfund transfer resolution. Does anybody want to sort out any of these on your council before?
I don't want to pull any, but as long as Rob's in the audience, maybe he could stand up and brief us all on just kind of the overall general policy and any changes or whatever, but I don't think, as long as you're here.
Sure, absolutely. I know everyone, but I am Rob Bixenman with Perspective Insurance, and we have had the privilege of being the agent for the city of Lamar's for probably the better of 20 years, somewhere in there. You have been with ICAP. ICAP stands for the Iowa Community Assurance Pool. Keep in mind that it is assurance, not insurance. We refer to it as insurance because it operates just like insurance, but in reality what you are doing is risk sharing with other communities inside the pool in the state of Iowa. So think there are like 89 counties within the state of Iowa on the ICAP plan, and I don't know how many cities and landfills and EMS services and those kinds of things. There's a large number of members to this pool. So the nice thing is as a member of this pool, the policy, the coverages are written for municipalities in the state of Iowa. So you get to be an author on what's covered and what isn't. So the performance of the pool in the last year was not very good. Up in our neck of the woods, we had really good weather, but in other parts of the state, they had some pretty nasty tornadoes and windstorms that went through. So in looking at this renewal, the general liability, and I should mention too, this year we had a touch-free renewal process. So basically, ICAP looked up what your budget filed with the state of Iowa was, and we went under the assumption that we had kept up on all the changes for autos and buildings and those kinds of things through the course of the year, which we generally do. We seldom catch anything that we've missed. But so the general liability went down by almost 5%. Auto liability stayed roughly the same. Wrongful acts officials liability, which is the liability coverage for basically this board, this council. Law enforcement liability went down a touch because we don't have as many officers as we had last year. Currently, anyway. So we took advantage of being one short, and we're able to save some money there. Auto physical damage, really basically the same. We do have a $2,500 deductible for comp and collision on all the vehicles for the city. We made a change, I think it was last year on that, we increased those. ICAP agency commission stayed the same. The member credit, this is where ICAP returns in the form of almost like a dividend based on the performance of the ICAP group. Did go down pretty substantially, and that's a reflection of the weather that ICAP experienced this last year. So
that's actually a cost to us, not a decrease.
It's actually you get a rebate, but you get less of a rebate this year.
So it's a higher.
Yeah.
Yep. It's
Yep.
a negative cost.
Yep. And then airport liability, roughly the same as last year, or exactly the same as last year. So all in all, the casualty portion of our renewal looks good, down about $800. If you flip the page over, this is where we get a little bit of bad news. The property portion for the city of Lamar's went up, mainly because of the values. So the value of the property that we are insuring is about $4 million more than last year for two reasons. We have a 2% inflation rate that ICAP applies to the entire bunch of properties. And that's simply because we're insuring everything on replacement costs, and it costs more to build it this year than it did last year, okay? So that makes up about $2 million, and then we have a $2 million addition going on to the YMCA that makes up the other portion. So that's where our increase in property values went. And then again, the ICAP member credit went down this year, which is not in your favor. So all in all, it's a $10,601 increase over last year, or 5.19%.
Any questions for Rod? That answer your question, Clark?
Yeah, it really wasn't a question.
Is there any coverages that we're missing in your opinion?
No.
Okay.
The ICAP policy is extremely broad. It's the only insurance policy you'll find that covers any kind of rail, and the city owns a large tract of rail. So, other than trying to go out and get a separate policy just for that rail, ICAP is far and away the answer there. So,
If memory serves me, last year, the Iowa legislature, they passed a bill that said companies, businesses, and I'm assuming municipalities cannot be sued for the accusation of contracting COVID on their property. Because I had a citizen call me and say, hey, the parks aren't being sanitized, and I said, yeah, that's true. I said it would be next to impossible. I said, basically it is, you use it, you sanitize to your level of comfort. So we don't have to worry about coverage for such a thing, right?
no, and I also don't think you have to worry about lawsuits necessarily that are gonna fall in it. I mean, COVID has had such little impact in the insurance world because it's just so difficult to prove where you got it.
Trace it, right?
You know,
Okay, so that was
where in
my
the world
question.
did you catch it?
That was just my question, because it was asked of me, and so.
Early in this process, we were quite afraid of the impacts on workers' compensation. But even that has been so minimal because people cannot prove they got it at work, you know?
Right.
So,
Okay.
I don't know, are you seeing anything different than that, Mike?
No.
I,
That's spot on.
yeah.
Any other questions for Rob?
Hospital's policy, liability and vehicles and all that kind of stuff is covered by that. correct?
Yes, we were able to get that sorted out all last year, so. Actually, it always has been insured by them, but they had some vehicles that were titled in the city of Lars. So technically, this policy would have responded, but it's just cleaner to have them have their own.
Good deal, Rob. I just want to share with you, as mayor, I certainly, the checks come to me, but the rebate check that you get back at the end of every year is a big item for our city.
Yeah,
And we want to thank you and keep that going and get it bigger if you can, okay?
will do.
I'll make a motion to approve consent items 1 through 6 with resolution 2043, item 6.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Been motion made and second to approve the consent items 1 through 6 with the resolution dash 2043. All those in favor, or I need a roll call on that, Ben.
Knapp,
Yes.
Wicks,
Yes.
Fiscal,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Donovan.
Yes.
Motion carried. Moving on to the action items, I'm gonna move up the Wells wastewater number 2 to the next item, because I see Mr. David Burgess here representing Wells and Ron is here, so bear with me here just a minute. It has to do with the wastewater treatment agreement. Attached is a letter from Mr. David Burridge, Director of EHS Wells Enterprises Incorporated, requesting an amendment to the existing wastewater service agreement. Wells is requesting a temporary increase in permitted discharge limits due to an increase in production. The staff has been in discussion for months with Wells personnel, Bolton and Mink, and the Iowa Department of Natural Resources concerning this matter. All involved feel comfortable with the temporary limits as proposed. Attached is amendment number 1 and IDNR treatment agreement form. The recommendation is from the administration is the Public Utilities Committee and Bolton and Mink recommend executing the amendment. Questions?
Let me just add,
Yeah.
because I placed in front of you the amendment number 1 as it was modified this morning. So what's in your packet is a little bit, is old. What was added after some discussion this morning is on the third page, page 3, number 7 was added. I think just because of the length of time this has taken, you'll notice some of the dating in here kind of goes back to the need for the adjustment of the limits goes back to April 1st. So what has been happening since April 1st is, intermittent excess exceeding current limits. So practice is if they exceed limits, there is a fine that is assessed. And Wells has been paying that fine as we invoice them for it. So 7 was added just as a little bit of a safeguard. And with talking with David this morning and also Greg Sint and Ron, there's no intent to go back and try to recapture those fees that have been paid. So we just placed that in the document this morning. So that's the change from what you have in front of you to what's in the packet.
Any questions?
Ron, do you have anything additional?
No, I'm good. We've been working on it.
I think Clark and I both are on the committee. We spent a lot of hours on this, and it came out just about exactly what we all discussed in our last meeting.
So speaking with David, that there's still, production is still ramped up to
That's correct.
full capacity. So as people quarantine or whatever from COVID, they're still eating ice cream. So.
Okay. Entertain a motion?
Motion to authorize the administration's execute amendment number 1, Wells Dairy Incorporated Wastewater Service Agreement, temporarily increased discharge limits.
Second.
And made and second to motion to authorize administration to execute amendment number 1 to Wells Enterprises Incorporated Wastewater Services Agreement to temporarily increase discharge limits. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, David. And thank you for being here, and I hope this gives you some relief.
Thank you, and I just appreciate what you've done for us personally too, and bringing us to the water, so thank you. I'd like to publicly say that. So I really appreciate that what the council's done. It's been a very, very good experience for us, so thank you.
You know, that's very kind of you. We appreciate those comments.
Thank you.
Okay, going back to the original, number 1, the mobile foods vendors ordinance. Bear with me here just a minute.
Well, we skipped over it to get to, so it might be forward in the packet there. Because we jumped ahead. Yes, we jumped ahead.
Thanks, Stuart. Thanks, Blake. Okay, moving on is the mobile food vendors ordinance. At the November 3rd, 2020 meeting, the council approved the first reading of ordinance number 961 regarding amending the Lamar's Code of Ordinance by adding a new chapter, number 126, mobile food vendors. The new chapter will regulate food trucks on public property only. The proposed process would require an application and fee be submitted before operating public property. The recommendation is from the administration, which recommends the council for approval on this for the reading. Entertain a motion.
I'll just, there,
Oh,
no,
excuse
no
me.
changes have been made since the last.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the second reading of ordinance number 961 to amend the Lamar's Code of Ordinances by adding new chapter 126 mobile food vendors.
Second to the motion.
Motion made and second to approve the second reading of the ordinance number 961 to amend the Lamar's Code of Ordinances by adding new chapter 126 mobile food vendors. Can we have a roll call on that, Bev?
Donlin?
Aye.
Knapp?
Yes.
Goodchild?
Yes.
Wick?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion to waive the third reading of ordinance number 961 to amend the Lamar's Code of Ordinances by adding new chapter 126 mobile food vendors.
Second to the motion.
Motion made and second to adopt resolution number 961 to amend the Lamar's Code of Ordinance by adding a new chapter 126 mobile food vendors on the second reading. Can we have a roll call on that, Bev?
Donlin?
Aye.
Knapp?
Yes.
Goodchild?
Yes.
Wick?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 961 to amend the Lamar's Code of Ordinances by adding new chapter 126 mobile food vendors on its second reading.
Second to the motion.
Motion been made and second to adopt ordinance number 961 to amend Lamar's Code of Ordinances by adding a new chapter 126 mobile food vendors on its second reading. Could we have a roll call on that, Bev?
Donlin?
Aye.
Knapp?
Yes.
Goodchild?
Yes.
Wick?
Yes.
Nelson?
Nelson, yes.
Motion carried. Moving on to the discussion side. Rex, do you have anything on discussion today?
Yeah, the state came out with their closed door, 3-committee rollback limits for property taxes on, what day was that? Just last week or something? You got it right? Right, Jacob? You got it? On my hot little hand here. And it basically says that residential property is going to be assessed at 2.4